For centuries, we've been told a specific story about the Garden of Eden.
Where are we going?
A perfect God, an innocent couple, and a malicious serpent bent on destruction. But what if we've been reading the script entirely wrong? What if the devil wasn't the villain, but the only one trying to wake us up? What if the garden wasn't a home, but a beautifully designed cage, and the architect simply wanted robots instead of humans? When you look closely at the blueprint, the perfection starts to bleed.
Think of the last time you sat in total silence, waiting for an answer to a question that felt like life or death. Maybe you were in a hospital waiting room, or sitting on the edge of your bed, or perhaps standing in the back of a quiet church. You were told that there is a being who hears every whisper, who knows the number of hairs on your head, and who holds the power to move mountains. You were told he is perfect. But as you sat there, the silence didn't feel like a hug. It felt like a void. We've all heard the stories of the parting of the Red Sea, the man who walked through a furnace and didn't burn, the lions that weren't hungry because a prophet was in their den. These stories paint a picture of a God who is intimately involved, all-powerful and all-knowing. But if we look closely at the very book these stories come from, and if we look honestly at the world outside our windows, we start to see cracks in that perfection. We start to see a blueprint that is bleeding. Today, I want to talk to you about the possibility that we've been misreading the architect, y'all. What if the creator is not what we were told? Guess. What if he is not all-knowing? What if he is not all-powerful? Or worse, what if he is both, but he has simply stopped caring? Let's go back to the very beginning. Before there were people, there were the angels. We are told they lived in a realm of absolute holiness, designed by a perfect hand. But here's the first mystery. If God is perfect, and his realm is perfect, where did the first shadow come from? How does jealousy find its way into the mind of an angel like Lucifer? How does pride grow in a place where only God's glory exists? If you build a room and tell me it is perfectly sterile, but a virus begins to grow inside it, that room was never truly sealed. If God knew that creating the angels would lead to a war in heaven, then the war was his choice. But if he was surprised by it, then he is not all-knowing. Think about that for a moment. If a father gives his child a toy he knows is broken and will eventually explode, is the father testing the child, or is he just being cruel? And if he didn't know the toy would explode, can we really call him a master craftsman? There is a strange verse in Genesis that most people skip over. It happens right before the Great Flood. It says that the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Regret is a human emotion. We regret things because we didn't see the outcome. We regret things because we made a mistake and wish we could go back. But if God is all-knowing, regret is an impossibility. He would have seen the violence, the pain, and the failure of humanity before he even breathed life into the dust. Why would a perfect being create something just to drown it? Imagine the scene. The rain beginning to fall, the water rising, the sound of thousands of voices, infants, mothers, fathers, all screaming for a mercy that never came. If God had to destroy his first version of the world to start over, it's an admission that the first version didn't work, et al. It was a faulty experiment, and des. And then there is the Garden of Eden. We've been told it was a paradise, but look at the details. God puts two people in a garden and tells them not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Think about the logic of that. Why would a God who knew exactly that Adam would disobey put the tree there in the first place? If you know a substance is toxic to your children, or that a specific fruit is forbidden, you don't put it on the kitchen table and walk away. You take it far away, out of reach, where it cannot be accessed. Was the tree dangerous? Or was it just a trap? If it was a test, it implies God didn't know the outcome. If he was in doubt, he isn't all-knowing. But if he did know, then Adam wasn't a sinner. He was an actor, playing a role he was created for. This world, as we see it today, would be exactly as God designed it to be from the start. But what if Adam had stayed his hand? What if he had actually obeyed? We're told that would have been the ideal world. But think about what that means. We would have lived forever without the wisdom or understanding of good and evil. Were we meant to just be good at all times, like robots? If so, what happens to free will? Good is not truly good if evil does not exist. People cannot freely love God if there is no option to choose the opposite. So, if they had obeyed, would there even be an option for evil? What would that world look like? All of us, billions of people, living naked in a garden that is nowhere to be found today. And what if only one fell? If Eve had sinned and Adam had stayed, would she have been cast out alone? Would Adam have been left to live in solitude? Or would a new wife have been created for him? Or would the tests have continued over and over again until Adam finally failed? Because according to the script, it seems God wanted to enter the story as his own son in the future. And for that to happen, the fall was a mechanical necessity. The more you look at the era of Adam, the more it feels like we are missing the full details. Some ancient texts speak of Lilith, a wife before Eve, suggesting that the history of man is far more complicated than the Sunday school version we've been given. But look at their son, Cain. After he killed his brother Abel, he was terrified. He said to God, "Whoever finds me will kill me." Who was he afraid of? If Adam, Eve, and Cain were the only people on earth, who were these others lurking in the shadows? God gave him a mark so that these people would recognize God's hand and not harm him. Was this a literal mark? And who were these people that could recognize a divine mark? Were they failed experiments by God? Previous versions of humanity that were left to wander the earth? It's hard to believe Adam and Eve were the first creatures when the text speaks of giants and of beings who came to sleep with God's creatures to give birth to the Anunnaki, the Nephilim. It suggests that Adam and Eve weren't the beginning, but perhaps just the most recent project in a long line of cosmic trials. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, God walked through the garden in the cool of the day and called out, "Adam, where are you?" Is he playing a game? Or did he genuinely lose track of the beings he created? When he finds them, he doesn't sound like a disappointed parent. He sounds like a king who is worried about a rebellion. He says, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil." He cast them out, not to punish them for their sin, but to stop them from eating from the second tree, the tree of life. He was afraid they would live forever and become his equals. If the devil was the one who encouraged them to eat, maybe he wasn't trying to destroy them. Maybe he was trying to wake them up. We have to ask, was the garden a home? Or was it a cage? And how did the devil get in there to begin with? If God is all-powerful, no serpent could have slithered past the gates without a divine permit. This suggests that the devil isn't God's enemy. He's his partner, his tester. Consider the story of Job. It's one of the most chilling accounts in the entire Bible. It starts with a conversation in heaven. God is bragging. He's showing off Job like a prized trophy. And the devil challenges him. He says,
"Job only loves you because you've made him rich and safe. Take it all away and he'll curse you."
And God says,
"Fine. Do whatever you want to him. Just don't kill him."
think about the human reality of that decision. Job's children are killed in a storm. His wealth is burned. His body is covered in painful sores. Job sits in the ash, scraping his skin with a piece of broken pottery, mourning his dead sons and daughters. All of this because of a wager? Does God need to prove himself to the devil? Is our suffering just a way for God to win an argument? If God is all-knowing, he already knew Job wouldn't crack. The test was unnecessary. Unless God isn't sure. Unless there is a competition between them that we are only seeing a small piece of. We see this pattern everywhere. God hardens the heart of Pharaoh in Egypt. Pharaoh wanted to let the people go, but the text says, God hardened his heart so that he could show off his power with more plagues. He killed the firstborn children of every house in Egypt, thousands of innocent babies, just to prove a point to a king whose mind he was already controlling. Where was the free will there? Where was the justice for the Egyptian soldiers who were just following orders to feed their families, only to be drowned in the Red Sea? And that brings us to the silence of today. We are told that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But the God of yesterday parted seas. The God of today let 16 people be slaughtered inside a church in Africa while they are in the middle of a prayer. The God of today watches as a newborn baby spends its only months on earth fighting terminal cancer. Why have the miracles stopped? Is it because we don't have enough faith? That's what the people in the tall buildings will tell you. But that feels like a cruel answer. If a child dies because their parents didn't pray hard enough, then God is not a father. He's a cosmic vending machine that's been out of order for centuries. Maybe the truth is simpler, but more frightening. Maybe there are rules even God cannot break. If you jump in front of a moving car, you will be crushed. It doesn't matter how many years you've spent in a pew. The physics of the world are absolute. This suggests that if there is a God, he either cannot interfere with the laws of nature, or he has chosen not to. But if he cannot interfere, then he isn't all-powerful. And if he chooses not to while children suffer, then the word loving starts to lose its meaning. There is a theory that free will is the reason for all the evil. But we don't have free will over everything. We aren't free to fly. We aren't free to live without water. God created the boundaries of our physical reality. He could have easily created a boundary where humans were physically incapable of harming one another. He could have made it so that a hand raised in violence simply wouldn't move, but he didn't. He gave us the freedom to hurt, but he didn't give us the freedom to escape the consequences of a world he designed. So, we have to look at the other possibilities. Let us make man in our image. That's what it says in Genesis. Us, not me. What if there was a collective of creators? What if the being we call the devil was one of them? Some ancient stories, hidden and buried for centuries, suggest that the devil was the one who actually cared for humanity. They suggest that the vengeful God of the Old Testament was a usurper, a being who won a war in heaven and then wrote the history books to make himself look like the hero. If there is a father and a son, logic says there should be a mother. Where is she? Was she the one who tried to give us wisdom in the garden? Was she cast out and labeled as the evil one because she wanted her children to be free from the father's experiments? Perhaps we are living in a world where the battle of the gods has already ended. Maybe the silence we hear today is because the Creator has moved on. Maybe we are a failed experiment left to run on autopilot. This would explain why the design of the world is so perfect. The tilt of the earth, the beauty of a sunset, the complexity of DNA. But the experience of the world is so filled with random cruelty. The machine was built beautifully, but the engineer has left the room. Think about the testimonies you hear on Sundays. Someone says, "I found a parking spot right in front of the store. Praise God." While at that very same moment, a mother is burying her child in a war zone. If God is answering the prayer for a parking spot, but ignoring the prayer of a mother in a basement, what does that say about him? Is he partial? Does he have favorites? Or is it possible that none of it is divine? If the story of the Bible is true, then God is a being who regrets his choices, who plays games with the devil using human lives as currency, and who demands absolute obedience while offering a silence that can be deafening. But if the story is just a shadow of something else, then maybe we aren't bearing the sins of Adam. Maybe we aren't broken. Maybe we are just survivors in a world that wasn't designed for us to thrive, but merely to exist. If you pray for a miracle and it doesn't come, it doesn't mean you are a failure. It might just mean that the script you've been told to follow was written by people who are just as afraid of the dark as you are. They created a God they could understand, one who is angry, one who is jealous, one who tests and punishes, because that was easier than accepting that we are alone. But look at the world again. Look at the way a forest grows back after a fire. Look at the way humans continue to love each other even in the middle of a massacre. If there is a spark of the divine, maybe it isn't in a throne in the clouds. Maybe it's in us. Maybe the forbidden fruit wasn't a sin. Maybe it was the first step toward our true graduation. We were kicked out of the garden because we were no longer specimens. We were becoming something else. As you go back to your life and you find yourself in those moments of silence again, don't be afraid if you don't hear a voice answering you. The silence isn't necessarily a sign that you've been abandoned. It might just be the sound of a world that is finally ours to manage. The architect may have left the building, or he may have never been who we thought he was. But we are still here. And in a universe that seems indifferent to our pain, the fact that we still choose to be kind, the fact that we still try to find meaning, that might be the only miracle we ever really needed. The truth isn't something you find in a book. It's something you feel when you finally stop being afraid of the questions. So, what if we've been worshiping the shadow this whole time? And what if the light is actually waiting for us to stop looking up and start looking at each other?